Hi everyone, thank you for joining us. So we're gonna kick off our second panel. And this panel is going to be around EV benefits, so ask an EV owner. And we have some fun questions prepared today for our EV owners. Here's have 3 EV owners with a wide range on at one end of Virginia to the other end, kind of hit into the metro area. So this is gonna be super fun, relaxing, and my name is Shakaya Cooper. I work with Generation 180, which is a national nonprofit, but we do some very specific state work, for instance, like in Virginia, in supporting the teen cohort. And we like to say that we inspire and equip individuals to take action on clean energy. And so we do it through various ways, and one of the very fun ways is connecting with EV owners. We find that their stories are very powerful. It gives a human element to things that are just uncomfortable when speaking in rooms about change that is new for people. So we're gonna kick it off. Our EV owners are gonna share how long they've been an EV owner and where they're located in Virginia. You wanna kick it off, Daphne?
Hi, I'm Daphne Domingo, and I am located in Northern Virginia. I've been an EV owner since 2018, although my husband had his in 2017. So I'd say I'm an owner since 2017.
My name is Brian Mausolf. I'm right here in the Fredericksburg area, so it's nice and local for this event. And I've been an EV owner since 2017 when I got a Nissan Leaf that we used. And just this past May, I now upgraded to a 2020 Chevrolet Volt, so I've kind of upgraded. So I've seen the way EVs were back then and how they've come now, and of course we'll certainly be talking about that.
So my name is Charles Garena. I grew up from Richmond, Virginia, and I've been an EV owner since 2014. I'm my second EV, and I'm happy to also report that my wife just got an EV a few weeks ago, yay. So, a Mustang Mach-E, and I have a Chevy Volt.
Nice. So my first question for you guys is, what were your initial concerns about going electric? And since having gone electric, how has that addressed those concerns for you?
I guess I'll start. I was really nervous. My car previously was old enough to go to college. I didn't know much about electric cars. It was still really new. And I had this hesitation just because I like to be prepared. I don't want to be dependent on electric cars. And so when my husband got his, I mean, it was certainly a really great car, but I was very hesitant, and I even looked at doing hybrids initially. Eventually, yeah, a lot of like the car dealerships didn't really know too much about the hybrids, or they were very hesitant about the electric cars, and finally I settled on one, and I love it, and I will not go back.
Brian?
So for me, when I got started in EVs, it was almost actually kind of out of necessity, and Alan actually touched on this a little bit in the previous discussion, because I had a Volkswagen Jetta TDI, so that was affected by the whole emissions deal that they had. So I had Volkswagen buy that vehicle back, so naturally I had to go looking for a replacement. And initially, again, the same kind of thing. I was looking into hybrids because my uncle had a Prius, and I found a Prius plug-in. I was like, ooh, that's kind of interesting, because you could plug it in and get some all-electric EV range. And then I started doing more and more research, and then I found electric-only vehicles. And then that's when I started looking at stuff like the Nissan Leaf, the Ford Focus Electric, and other ones that they had back then in 2017. And eventually I stumbled on this Nissan Leaf that was being sold up in Woodbridge, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna get it because I can get a good deal on it used. And so I did that, and that got me into the electric game. And I'm a bit of a technology person myself, so the whole idea of going into the whole electric thing was kind of almost natural when you're kind of a tech nerd person like me, because you kind of get into that kind of thing. And then, as I say earlier, it kind of went on from there, but I'm on my second EV now, just earlier this year. So yeah, it's been quite a ride.
So I was just trying to remember this. So I didn't know, back in 2014, I didn't know what expectations I had. I mean, the only knowledge I had at the time was of, the Prius, so going back to the hybrids. But then I was reading about it, and I said, oh, it's not very exciting to drive. It's kind of, not as efficient as it could be. So and I was looking to get into a more efficient vehicle at the time. Gas prices were pretty high then, and they're even higher now. So basically, I was focused on trying to save money on gasoline. Because that previous car I had for 10 years, so I wanted to get something really efficient. And I thought about hybrids, and then I said, the Nissan Leaf's out there, let me check it out. And I think, well, I have no idea how this thing's going to drive. At the time, you think about EVs, you think about golf carts, right? And then I got in the car, it drives like any other car, but then it was quiet. It was responsive when I put on the accelerator. It just goes. And then when I went, and literally they gave me the keys to the car just to test drive it. And by the time I came back, I was ready to buy the car. And then when my second EV now, and just continue to have that positive experience. But I would say my initial concern was about how is it going to drive. And I know a lot of people that I talk to about EVs, they say, I think because it's something that's still relatively new, and they're a little bit nervous about it. And you don't have to know anything about how the battery technology works and all that other stuff. It drives like a car, but there's definitely some differences to it that I'm sure we'll get into. And for me, those differences have been great.
Great. I'm going to start back with you, Charles, because I think out of the panelists, you were probably one of the earlier adopters. And so, what did you do starting out when it came to sharing your experience with maybe friends, family, neighbors, and what were their reaction? I imagine this is something new, unorthodox for them. So how did they respond?
I'm laughing because I remember when I posted on Facebook that there's my car in my driveway, and I was so proud of it. And my brother-in-law posts a picture of like a car with like a battery in the trunk, and he's like kind of laughing, So it's like, because I think the next picture is like, oh, you're driving a toy car, well, that's not a real car, and so, and honestly, I was basically trying to get into a car and save money on gas because I didn't want to burn carbon. And the whole advocacy thing, talking to people, I'm an introvert, so people like asking about my pure looking Leaf and where do you charge it? And I was not used to any of that. And so, and when I talk to people now, I tell them, depending on what vehicle you have, you're going to get questions, and it's okay to not be an expert, but be prepared to like respond to those kinds of things. But it took a while to kind of get used to, again, being an introvert, being comfortable with people, like walking up to you and saying, hey, what car is that? And how does that thing work? And then over time, you kind of, I found that just the most impactful thing is just to talk about what you do. Like, what do you feel about the drive? Not getting into like how does the battery work and level 2 versus fast charging and those other stuff. Like people care about I do the things I need to do and I don't get stuck anymore. And it's fun to drive.
How about you, Brian?
So yeah, I've kind of had a similar experience like what Charles mentioned, because again, when I was first looking at the Nissan Leaf and everything, again, my mother sort of brought it up. It's like, oh, is it kind of like a golf cart or something like that? It's because again, that's what kind of the perceived view of EVs was back then in their early days. And then, once we started driving the vehicle and taking it around, I guess it's not quite a golf cart after all. And so, people get a little more into that, and we're talking convincing people on things like that, because again, like Charles, people have asked me about my Leaf when I had it as well, and I've actually convinced some people to either get into a plug-in hybrid or an all-electric vehicle, because for instance, I got 2 different stories on that. One is I was at Dominion Raceway a couple of years back for an event they had, and our group, Drive Electric RVA, was doing something there, and I was there with my Leaf, and one of the members of the Antique Automobile Club of America chapter here in Fredericksburg was down there with their antique cars, and they were talking with me for a while, and they were kind of interested in the tech. And then I met them later that same year, and they had actually gone and gotten a BMW plug-in hybrid. Now their wife wasn't quite ready to go to full electric, so the plug-in hybrid was kind of that crossover between that, which of course works out just fine. And then the other is actually here, there's a local clinic that does chemotherapy, and one of the employees was aware that I drove an electric vehicle. And she was interested in, of course, asking all the same kind of questions and things about it. And eventually she has now settled on a Hyundai Ioniq 5. So that's another person that I guess you could say has been converted into the electric vehicle range. So yeah, it's always interesting to see what people come across and the kind of questions and things that come up. It's very interesting.
I think more than having an electric vehicle, especially when my husband got it, I think the brand was a little bit more the eye-catching. It was a Tesla before the Tesla Model 3s came out. So it was like kind of just having a luxury car. So family was fascinated, friends were fascinated, and I was surprised how many people off the street were fascinated, especially people of color. I mean, I remember one guy, I was out using his car playing Pokemon Go. So I was parked on some street, and this African American guy's like, wow, I've never seen one of these. And he was so fascinated. He loved that, you know, that I was a woman of color, and I'm listening to Luther Vandross, and it was just like this beautiful, he just was like, oh, I think that there was, you know, I've even had, I think, I was volunteering at some place, and yeah, this guy said, can you just like go real fast? And he just wanted to see me go away. So I think just being an approachable owner or driver, and also, yeah, just being able to see like, oh, these are actually not so scary vehicles, and they're nice and they're comfortable, and so yeah, that was my good experience with that.
Nice. Earlier we opened up with Virginia DOT and Department of Rail talking about Virginia's plan for continuation of infrastructure, and so I imagine, since you guys are a little bit more seasoned in being an EV owner, that where we are in the infrastructure world now looked very different than almost 10 years ago. So can you guys touch on that? Especially you, Charles, I know you said you adopted in 2014, and so what did the infrastructure look like then compared to now?
Yeah, it's definitely seen a lot of change for the positive. Because back in 2014, pretty much, you know, there was a scouring kind of level 2 chargers of, you know, you didn't have, you know, EVgo, Electrify America, and Tesla, you know, at scale, and you know, the state putting money into it, and now federal dollars coming into it. So, and this is my experience. So, you know, I'm fortunate. I'm in a single family home, and we have a driveway, and so we pretty early. First few months, you know, I just plugged into an outlet that was outside my deck, and that served me perfectly well just to charge my Leaf overnight. But then eventually I upgraded to a level 2 charger, so that's 240, a little bit faster, so I can get it done a little quicker. And so I charge at home, and for folks who can do that, it's very convenient because you don't have to like make a special trip to some place to refuel the car. It becomes more like charging yourself. And like you charge it at the beginning of the day, and maybe at the end of the day, if it's a little low, you plug it in, or if it gets low at some point, you might plug it in somewhere else. So, and I've been happy to see that there's been more of that level 2 charging that's been public. And I hope to see more growth of that, because that kind of opportunity charging is very impactful. Just being able to, the idea of, and it's a different mindset. It's not just going to make a special trip to refuel, but more of a mindset, I'm just going to top off whenever I need to. So I'm at the library, I'm at the grocery store, I'm watching a movie, I'm here for an event at the convention center, and I'm going to be here a couple of hours. Perfect opportunity when the car is just sitting to charge it. You know, that's why a lot of EV owners will tend to charge either at home or when they're at work, because that's where periods of time where the car is just sitting, and then the opportunity to be able to refuel it while you're doing it is very convenient. But it's been really good also to see the DC fast charger infrastructure building out as well.
Yeah, so I had a similar experience. Again, I was a little later on when I was in 2017 when I got my Leaf, and of course the cars back then, the economy cars, anyone knows, 84 miles was about the max range at absolute best. And when I say best, that means you actually have less than what it says. And so you had to plan your trips out, and again, as Charles was talking about, the infrastructure was only so much back then to where it is now. And I've traveled as far as northern Maryland, all the way down to Petersburg in Virginia Beach, with my Leaf. And of course, as I say, with the range, battery capacity it had, that took a little doing, figuring out where you needed to go for chargers back then. And once again, talk about the DC fast charging infrastructure, most people might remember green lots which was one of the charging networks that has since gone defunct. And they ran a lot of these Signet DC fast chargers, and some of these were placed in like auto shops or in garages or in things like that, and people could, fast charge at 25 or 50 kilowatts because that was pretty much the maximum standard back then. And the problem is that, most of them were free, and that means that it was up to the owner that had the station there to keep it maintained, which was also a bit of an issue because these chargers tended to break. And when they did, they were pretty much out of commission because that might be the only DC fast charger in a drivable radius. So you might be looking for a level 2 J1772 somewhere, and you gotta sit on that for an hour or more so you can get to your next place that you need to go. And again, as Charles has mentioned, the infrastructure is a lot better now because we have a lot more dedicated charging networks like EVgo, Electrify America, the Rivian Adventure Network, Tesla now with the NACS system. And it's expanded a lot more. So the whole question that has been brought up way back when of where can I charge? How far can I go? And, again, modern EVs do 200 miles out. So that question is pretty much not that relevant anymore. So the charging infrastructure has certainly gotten better since the days past.
Yeah, before, we used to love, we had a tradition on Thanksgiving weekend of going for a drive on the Blue Ridge Mountains, but oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of that. Those mountains to the west.
Drive.
Thank you, Skyline Drive. And yes, and so, because of the weather and because of all the inclines, my husband's charge was getting a little bit too close for comfort, and there was not a charger anywhere close, and we didn't know with the other brands. So thankfully, there was, I think, it turned out to be a winery that had, just a plug-in that we could do. So that was a nice discovery. But yeah, there were times that you just got this really anxiety, range anxiety, I think is what they called it. And one time a friend of mine was volunteering out that way, and he had a Bolt, and we went to he had gone to an Electrify America, I think in Fairfax, and it wasn't working, and he didn't know what to do because there wasn't really anything nearby. And so, I drove out to him just to kind of help hold his hand, and we had to find, I think, just a regular plug-in, and just for him to have enough so that he could drive home. And thankfully that's not really a fear, because now, yeah, you go to that Target and the Electrify America charger doesn't work. There's one, not even a mile away. So it's really grateful. I'm grateful that there are alternatives now.
Yeah, I think that gives me hope as well, right? Is that the infrastructure isn't as bad as people think it is. I think that's a huge myth, and that compared to 10 years ago, when we look at it in 10 more years, we're gonna be much further. I wanna hear from you guys, what's the most funnest thing about driving an EV? Daphne?
I've been watching lately the option to camping your car, and to be able to keep your AC on without the guilt. I also, when I have visitors, I'm a personal drive, or I forget, like hop on, hop off chauffeur, and without the guilt of leaving the AC on or the car on while I wait for people to take their pictures at the mall and everything. So yeah, I find that enjoyable, and it's comfortable.
Well, I can say the fun thing about EVs, and I think Charles will probably agree with me, is that because EVs have electric motors, you have 100% torque from the full stop, and the batteries are nice and low, so you have a low center of gravity. So when you go on your throttle, you're out of there. And I've actually driven on both the Richmond International Raceway racetrack, believe it or not, with my Leaf, and also the road course here at Dominion Raceway on 2 different occasions. And when we were doing it at the Richmond Raceway, it was actually part of ODEC, the Old Dominion Electric Cooperative actually had a ride and drive event that they were using the raceway there for, and Alan was there with us, so he probably remembers that. And of course, we were doing an event a couple of years in the past at Dominion Raceway where we were able to use their 2-mile road course and also their drag strip for EVs there, and people could ride along with us and be able to feel all the acceleration and the G's around the curves with us, because it allowed them to basically feel the EV experience, how much power they can put out and stuff like that. So yeah, EV is going to be very fun to drive.
You get the neck snap. You know, it's when,
Yeah, if you got a really powerful car, you can.
You stole mine, because I was gonna say the raceway one, was fun. So I'll pick an everyday fun and then a sort of one-off fun. The everyday fun of driving EV to me is the quiet. You know, and at the end of a stressful day, to be able to get in my car and drive home, roll the windows down when the weather's nice, and you know, it just feels effortless. You know, because of the responsiveness of the car and the quiet of the motor. One-off fun, I have to say, and this is my idea of fun. So I had to go to a writer's retreat. This was early on when I had the Nissan Leaf. And so it was a good ways up into northern Virginia, into horse country. And so, I was definitely at the end, like I had enough charge to get there, but not to get back. So I knew that at some point before I left, I would have to. But in the meantime, it was just, and as an EV owner, even though I have more range, I have a Bolt, and that goes 259 miles. So I think I should be thinking a lot less about range, but yeah, I drove here on Route 1 because I like to drive more leisurely. Interstates are scary, so, but it's great, but it's also great for your range and for your EV too. So being able to go through through the mountains and the windy road and a quiet EV is very relaxing. But then it was an adventure, because I felt like I was going on an adventure, because I've been to someplace I've never been before. I had to ask them, I'm going to need to charge my car. Is there like someplace I can plug in? They said, oh sure, don't worry about it. So I was at day 3, and then, long story short, the plug turned out to be an extension cord from the kitchen. And it kept popping the circuit, so I had to keep coming back out. But and you would think that would be terrifying, but it was part of this adventure, because I charged the car, I got home safe, and when I got home, I thought, man, that was really fun. I met range anxiety, and I just went right past it, and then I haven't felt any sense of anxiety since then.
Nice. So it sounds like adventurous and possible race car driver, if you're not an EV owner yet. I know we're almost at time, so if folks in the audience have any questions, we can take those now. If not, I have a couple more for the owners.
Since you guys are more let's say, veteran EV drivers, have you reached a point where you're not really thinking about range anymore? You just get up, go out to your car, get in, don't even think about it? Even with the lower range vehicles?
yeah, I don't, but my commutes are generally very short. I think I have done, I think, halfway across country. We've driven to Texas, in Florida, and whatnot, but not really. Thankfully, there's just enough, and I think I'm just cautious enough that, yes, when it gets to a certain percentage, yeah, try to charge up.
Yeah, I can extend on that a little bit as well, because when I had my Leaf, as I talked about before, the charging infrastructure with the range, you kind of had to plan your trips out. But now that I have a Bolt that, like Charles mentioned earlier, can do 259 miles on a charge, I'm not thinking about the range issue anymore. Because, for instance, actually tomorrow I had to go up to Chantilly for something up there, and when I had my Leaf, I had to charge going up there and coming back to get back here. With my Bolt, I don't have to do either of that at all, and I still come back with more than half a charge still left on the car. So again, the technology has gotten better. So again, it goes back to what I said earlier, the whole issue of, where can I charge and how far can I go is not that relevant anymore as it used to be years ago.
I'll just add that, I probably think a lot less about range than I used to, but I still have this, awareness. I think I talk about more like range awareness, not range anxiety, really, because you're just more aware of like, okay, I'm getting in the car, this is my much power I have, where am I going? Okay, I go through that math in my head every single time I get in the car. But nowadays I do the math. Okay, I'm done, and I don't think about it again. Like I know I have enough charge to get Richmond to here and go back again, and not within like even 100 miles radius, and not think about starting the charge. So it definitely, the modern EVs go over 200 miles maximum, and at that point, it becomes a lot less of a factor in terms of any range.
Oh, well, first, ironically, I just saw something on YouTube that popped up about the Chevette, and they said that Chevette had like tried out an electric car, like, you know, this is back in the embargo years. But anyway, but I want to say, I mean, you really haven't addressed a lot of the anxieties that I've had in terms of, you know, having the plug at your house, making your trips, as well as going to the Shenandoah, because I go to the Shenandoah, you know, probably about 3 to 4 times a year. And I mean, you know, you make sure you're gassed up when you go up, unless you're going to the middle, you know, I guess it's like mile marker 50 something, and they have gas up there. But as a matter of fact, a friend of mine, well, he just drove from Manassas to Michigan in a prison. So, you know, and he does it in a fairly amount of time, but I think it's just that perception of, you know, not having the anxiety that you talked about. And that's generally the whole. So, I mean, but most of your trips, I mean, are they like within the range of the charge, or do they like exceed the charge? I mean, between the three of you?
That'll probably be Daphne more, it sounds like.
For the long, so, I mean, mostly, the majority of my drive, oh, thank you. Sorry. The majority of my driving is more local, but yes, when I have gone on longer road trips, let's say Shenandoah, oh yes, and I think, yeah, I forgot there's a lodge where we thought we could charge and there were just kind of issues, which I think caused that. And I'm sorry, I got sidetracked when thinking about the anxiety thing. But thankfully, I think the car is smart enough to let you know, and not only if you have, if there should be concerns about when you can charge, but it'll tell you where you can charge to. And not just these specific Tesla chargers, but even like there are hotels or other parking garages that will have that. So thankfully that's something that's available. And there are websites for all different types of charging. So for the longer ranges, there's, yeah, just a lot of options, which helps make that, I think, something that I would even encourage, because you never know where you're gonna end up.
I'll just add real quick, because I know we're almost out of time, but what I find what's helpful to combat that sense of like unknown is knowledge, and knowledge is power. So I encourage people to think about like, how far do you drive a day or in a week, and then what are those few times when maybe you might go a little bit further, because you don't think about that. Like, you go to this gas station everywhere, so you don't really think much about how far you go in a given time. So you'd be surprised at how often you really don't go maybe 20, 30 miles a day, maybe 50, 100 miles a week. You know, I think the U.S. average is about somewhere between 30 and 50 miles a day. You know, so go through that process, and then, you know, go on PlugShare, which is a really great app and also a website, and then start locating the places you commonly go to and see where the charging infrastructure is. And you'd be surprised at how many level 2 chargers or what the access points are if you can't charge at home. And then, you know, because obviously charging home is the best option in terms of cost and convenience, but there's obviously opportunities to charge also. But I would try and encourage you, if you're thinking about going electric, just to give that thought about like how much you drive a day, what's your sort of extreme use cases, and then match the car. Because you don't want to buy more battery than the miles you're going to drive, because that doesn't make any sense, because the battery is a very expensive part of the car, and you're going to be paying more to lug around this big battery that you're never going to use. So I would just keep that in mind.
We are at time, so thank you guys so much. And I think they'll stick around, so if you have questions and want to come up and ask them during the break, that would be wonderful. But to close out, one last question, one word: would you ever go back to gas?
Reluctantly.
No.
I wouldn't, I don't feel a need to.
There you have it. Once you go electric, you don't go back.